Welcome adventurers! Today let's take an honest look at Final Fantasy XIV in the wake of the Dawntrade expansion and its follow-up patches, and if it's a good time to play the game now or wait for the next expansion. Let's address the elephant in the room, Dawntrade. While it hasn't set Eorzea on fire, in fact it's been received quite badly compared to the previous expansions. Criticism has ranged from bad story pacing to some underwhelming new content, and for a while it really felt like Final Fantasy XIV had lost a bit of its spark. But as they say, when you've hit rock bottom, there's only one way to go from here, which is up. And up it is. Patch 7.3 already shifted the overall depth and direction of storytelling in a very positive way. That was also received well from the community, which has shown that the dev team is listening. Of course, there are some hiccups here and there, and my personal biggest gripe is still the bad rewarding structure that ranges back to A REALM REBORN and basically hasn't been changed since then in its core foundation. On the other hand, that never held the game back when the hype was up in Shadowbringers, and I guess some people love the simplicity of gear systems compared to other games like WoW, where you need weeks of preparation just to participate in heroic content, where in Final Fantasy the catch-up gear will get you into savage raids in no time, and ultimate content, which is the hardest PvE challenge in 14, most of the times doesn't even need the recent gear at all, as the scaling system works with good stats on older gear too. And on top of that, I have to admit that the new relic weapons and probably some sort of armor alternatives have a very cool and balanced way of grinding them that combines the main idea of relics in Endwalker and how you got them before that. But of course, if you never played Final Fantasy XIV, all of this might sound like riddles to you, so let us start with the best feature the game still has, which is its free trial. Because regardless of all the criticism and problems, the game we veteran players fell in love with began years back in 2014 with A REALM REBORN and got the first big recognition with its first expansion, Heavensward. That is still one of the coolest expansions an MMO ever brought to life. And if you like the story in Skyrim or medieval fantasy stories in general, with many great characters, you will definitely love this epic tale of men versus dragons. But even the base game has its highlights and actually made me put it among the big mainline Final Fantasies when it comes to the stories and characters back in the day. And Square Enix always tries to improve that content by adding duty support or endgame content that will take players into lower level dungeons and trials, so you don't get stuck on a queue for a dungeon being necessary to your quest progress. Furthermore, the free trial doesn't end with Heavensward, as you can play all the way up to the last patches of Stormblood, which in my opinion was still a very good expansion, when you compare it to the usual MMO standards. But the biggest bang for the game might be the inclusion of Shadowbringers into the free trial, and I'm very certain that Square Enix will add that expansion as well, and I can only tell you this expansion broke me, as there has never been anything beyond that storytelling and character development quality for me. It's right up there with the big ones like Final Fantasy X, 7, 8, 9 or even the newest edition Clair Obscur. So especially for Final Fantasy fans, you cannot find any more fan service than in this game. Even the mainline stories have been woven into 14's story here and there, but all of the franchise's key features like chocobos, the typical Final Fantasy jobs, the music and homages to other games of the franchise will be present alongside your entire playthrough. But of course, all this doesn't really click for anyone that doesn't have any interest in playing through a story-driven MMO and who just wants to play endgame. And unfortunately, story skips bought from the store are definitely not a solution. So in my honest opinion, even if I personally love the story and would give 2 kidneys for re-experiencing all of this plot another first time, the game at its current state might not be for you, if you hate cutscenes and long pieces of dialogue. I mean, you can skip them, but still have to travel miles over miles from NPC to NPC, going many hours just for the completion of your main scenario quest. But what if you did? Of course, Final Fantasy XIV is not story only. There are still many players considering it the best PvE raiding experience you can have and far superior to the competition. And I agree, the battle system, while being homogenized more and more with recent expansions, the overall complexity of combat remains absolutely strong. Especially with how your character handles all the animations and flexes with its impressively looking skills and spells. I mean, a ninja still plays dramatically different than a black mage, and of course sticking to the classical trinity of healer, tank and DPS roles, the game diversifies your standing inside your raiding party. Above that, gear looks extremely cool in this game, as Square puts up a very high focus on the player character that shows in every section of the game, which perfectly combines with the one character job system, which means you can play all jobs on one character, changing with just a switch to a different weapon and job crystal. And with the recent announcement of Square Enix, they are removing restrictions to glamour, so you can basically wear a full plate armor as a caster when it comes to the aesthetics, so you can further distinguish your look from those of others. Surely, the PvP system, while being massively improved in Endwalker, still falls short to the competition, and in my opinion they will never make it work without replacing the sloppy server code that the game is built on. But if they just add some fresh glamour rewards here and there, or make old rewards accessible again, it could incentivize players to enjoy some PvP now and then, especially to bridge the gap between content patches. Also, the Occult Crescent content that is Dawntrail's new field exploration and open world battle content bears lots of potential, and if they adjust the right knobs and screws, it could be their best version of this type of content that can suck you in for days, especially with how much potential those phantom jobs offer. Taking the game a bit back to the old dual class days of A Realm Reborn that have been loved by many. Or even the newest deep dungeon and other forms of sideline content to bear the potential to be the fix to content drought, or players that just want a challenge but without having to team up with 7 other players on a scheduled formula. It's just the rewards they need to fix for that content, which feels like an easy solution if they just break out of their safe play mindset even once. And even when sounding like a broken record, the one thing I still love so much about the game is its community. While behind some characters you might find the same idiots as in other games, most players are super helpful, understanding and much more patient than the average gamer. If you run into a new dungeon and tell people that this is your first time, 95% of players will help you out with boss info and especially not blame you for any mistake that can happen on the way to the boss. But nonetheless, at its heart, Final Fantasy XIV remains a story-driven MMO. If what you're after is an endless endgame grind or hyper-competitive PvP, then it might not fully click for you. But if you're looking for a laid-back experience, enjoying dungeons and trials at your own pace, soloing with bots or teaming up with friends, and gradually unraveling one of the best stories in the MMO space, or even enjoy some technical high-level combat with lots of meticulously crafted encounters and one of the most demanding difficulty levels with ultimate raids, this game could be your next online home. To sum it up, yes, Final Fantasy XIV hit a low with Dawntrail, but the developer team is already turning things around and try out new forms of content. And with Shadowbringers hopefully being part of the free trial soon, and a possible change to the rewarding structure and pace of the game, the future actually looks very bright. And as you can try it out for free, you just have to spend some time to fall in love with it. So hop into this new adventure and forge one of those stories being told for generations, as this game has all the potential to be the best MMO of our time. Until we meet in-game or in another video, stay safe, stay healthy and keep loving Final Fantasy.